the name of the United Healthcare CEO shooter is Luigi Mangione. That's right. He is the person of interest, Luigi Mangione, who is under arrest for the United Healthcare CEO assassination. Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Let's take a look at the special report from ABC News.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We are coming on the air because multiple law enforcement officials say a person of interest is now
Mamma mia!
being questioned in the New York City murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. They say he's identified as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. Here's New York City Mayor Eric Adams with an update.
Thompson of United Healthcare was the victim of a senseless act of violence. Our officers have been working around the clock. Many of them did not go home to pursue this individual. It was crucial that we were able to remove him off the streets of America, and we were going to seek.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I felt really unsafe.
And the police commissioner made the decision to release as much of a photo that we had at the time. We sent it across the country, and someone, a McDonald's employee, did something we ask every American to do. If you see something, say something, but most importantly, do something. And they did. And because of that, we believe we have a strong person of interest to deal with this case. I want to now turn it over to the police commissioner of the city of New York, Commissioner Tisch.
I think it's really fucked up that they revealed this guy. I'm gonna be honest. I don't give a how. But listen, BDS is, he went to Starbucks first, got nabbed there. Then he got caught at a McDonald's in Allentown. BDS would have saved him. BDS would have saved him. And he didn't do it. That's what you get, motherfucker. I mean, listen, free him. But also, he's a dumb who used the same fake ID. Okay, Central Committee, just because this man is, you know, not ideologically aligned with someone like myself or someone like yourself, it doesn't mean you have to be so mean to him, okay? And I know it's partially because you hate Italians, okay? And I understand that. I understand that it's freightophobia that you are exhibiting. But let's just, you know, let's just work through it. Let's just work through it. Let's try to get a better understanding of what motivated this man to behave in the ways that he did. Oh, not Allentown, Altoona. Do not get my beloved Toontown names mistaken. First of all, Pennsylvania is such a fake state that there's not one but two different tune-related places. Like, what kind of Looney Tunes nonsense is happening over there? Y'all don't have better names? My bad.
The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police. Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the—
Wait, this motherfucker was literally carrying that shit on? He didn't dump it? Bro, you can learn anything online, okay? You can literally learn anything online. I saw a video of like the Syrian rebels that were watching a YouTube tutorial on how to fly a helicopter sitting inside of the cockpit of the helicopter. And now I'm beginning to realize that this guy was not a professional at all and just simply watched a YouTube video on how to carry out a assassination, because he should have watched more YouTube videos on how to, I don't know, hide the evidence. Why the yeah, I hate to do Monday morning quarterbacking here, but like the way he carried it out was pretty smooth. And then he turns around and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Altoona. By the time you get to Altoona, you have already left the state, okay? Dump it in a goddamn river, man. Make it the problem of law enforcement later down the line when someone is doing magnet fishing. You know what I mean? How the f do you keep that with you? Was he gonna go and kill other CEOs or something? What the f was he doing? Get the eyebrows threaded, you know? Maybe shave it down a little bit. Do something. Turns out a mutual friend of mine, oh, this is from the Prospect, Luke Coldstein, says, turns out a mutual friend of mine went to high school with Mangione and was on the wrestling team with him, says he was a class valedictorian. He had back surgery a few months ago and went missing. No one had heard from him. Oh my God. Well, now we know what the motive is, it seems. He's an incel though? No, I've seen him with like a lot of ladies, dude. I don't think he was an incel. I don't know. I mean, he might have been, we'll see. I'll dive into his background a little bit more because like looking at the podcast consumption that he has. Oh, that's his sister? Okay. Well, looking at the podcast consumption, I could see him being like, it seems like he was like incel adjacent on a lot of the podcast that he was consuming, but like, I don't know if I don't think this guy's an incel. I think maybe like a men's right activist lightly, but I don't think he's an incel at all. Avid reader of 295 books listed on Goodreads. Academically, he holds a master's and bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Pennsylvania. Additionally, he gained recognition as a valedictorian at Gilman School in Baltimore, showcasing his academic excellence. His work includes contributions to machine learning and robotics, as evidenced by projects on GitHub. It makes sense. He was like a fucking stem cell. He was like a jacked stem cell. So yeah, it makes sense why he would find himself captivated by, when you have no humanities, when you have no formal humanities education, you find yourself in the throes of radicalization by the likes of Andrew Huberman and all of a sudden become like kind of stem cell adjacent. Yeah, here is a very famous tweet that we have to point to. He literally quote retweeted Elon Musk's favorite neo-Nazi here. Immigration won't solve anything. It's maybe a short-term solution at best. Japan will be fine as long as it stays Japanese. This guy says, I am yes, you are no. He is a famous neo-Nazi online. Elon Musk's favorite neo-Nazi, as a matter of fact. He quote retweets him and says, modern Japanese urban environment is an evolutionary mismatch for the human animal. The solution to failing birth rates isn't immigration, it's cultural. Encourage natural human interaction, sex, physical fitness, and spirituality. Ban Tenga fleshlights and Japan Real Ho custom porn star pocket pussies being sold in Don Quixote grocery stores. Yeah, that's gonna fix the problem, man. You're definitely right. Yeah, it's because the Japanese are too vociferously, they're ravaging these sex toys that you can purchase at Don Quixote. And you know he's a weeb too, because he knows what Don Quixote is. If you know what Don Quixote is, you're a goddamn weeb. You're a otaku. Replace conveyor belts, sushi restaurants, vending machine ordering with actual human interaction with a waiter. I'm willing to bet that there is classic dumbass otaku that doesn't even understand Japanese culture, especially because human interaction is there's so much need for human interaction that like a big part of Japanese nightlife industry revolves around people that basically give that human interaction to you while you're engaging in social drinking, even if you are alone, okay? So it's not the fact that there's too many conveyor belt sushi and restaurant vending machines. Replace 24/7 esports cafes with young males. Earn false fitness signals via Tekken fighting and Overwatch shooting games with athletics in school. Heavily stigmatized maid cafes where lonely salarymen pay young girls to dress and anime characters to perform anime dances for them. Revitalize traditional Japanese culture, Shintoism, Okinawan karate, onsen, etc. Bro, you got so heated that he doesn't understand Japan. That's one of your weebest moments. Yeah, I love talking about the Japanese birth rates without addressing Japanese work culture, capitalism, and also the tendency of developed nations across the board to run into this trap regardless, especially if they don't engage in any sort of migration. Like, this is what happens when you are a stem cell with no understanding, no political acumen whatsoever. But I digress. This is important to understand and acknowledge that the issue of healthcare is a unifying principle, is a unifying problem. This is why it is not surprising that this person is not like a card-carrying commie leftist. Two reasons for why it's not shocking to me that he is not a card-carrying leftist or whatever, but instead is this like indecipherable kind of right-wing guy. Okay, one, he's a stem cell, okay? No understanding of humanities, probably assumes that humanities are bad. Two, the right dominates the space for political violence. They just dominate it. They own it. They dominate it. The right is so used to doing political violence that when you look at two of the Trump attempted assassins, Ryan Ruth, my NATO hero, okay, the #1 NATO defender, the one NATO voter, Ryan Ruth, and the other guy whose name I fucking forgot, the one that shot at Trump and popped him in the ear. One was a registered Republican. The other one had voted for Donald Trump. Ryan Ruth had literally voted for Donald Trump. So obviously, I feel as though the right is so used to the political violence and owning that space that they just kind of do violence to themselves. Can tell you that not a single person who went to Gilman is a leftist. I mean, it doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be a leftist at all. It doesn't matter. This reaffirms my position. This is my point. My point is, this is not a left-right issue, okay? This is definitely a class issue, and it certainly impacts even rich people from rich families. Regardless of the fact that this kid probably comes from a relatively well-off family, he went to a private school in Baltimore, he still got fucked over by American healthcare. That's it. Look, there's a very sad story here. Turns out a mutual of mine that went to high school with Mangione and was on the wrestling team with him says he was class valedictorian. Hey, are you okay? Nobody's heard from you in months, and apparently your family's looking for you. Thinking of you in prayers every day in your name. Know you are missed and loved. Hey man, I need you to call me. I don't know if you are okay or just in a super isolated place and have no service, but I haven't heard from you in months. You made commitments to me on my wedding, made commitments to me for my wedding, and if you can't honor them, I need to know so I can plan accordingly. Like I think he had to get back surgery and just like fell off the map. His Twitter account literally has, his Twitter header literally has spinal surgery x-rays. Luigi Mangione's Twitter header has this x-ray. As Goodreads has these books. He must have gone through some kind of personal hell with insurance. Crooked, outwitting the back pain industry and getting on the road to recovery. Back Mechanic by Dr. Stuart McGill. He gave it a 2 stars. Crooked, outwitting the back pain industry and getting on the road to recovery. He didn't like that book. I guess he didn't like the book because it said it didn't tell him at any point that the way to outwit the healthcare industry is by taking matters into your own hands. That's why he gave it 2 stars. Where he was like, yeah, no, I am not. All jokes aside, this is a real moment of radicalization for a lot of Americans. Every aspect of medicine in this country still at a certain point revolves around the profit motive. It is something that does not make sense. Even if you've taken an Econ 101 course, you understand that medicine, pharmaceuticals, and any sort of like medicine in general, any sort of medical help in general, has inelastic demand. If you don't get it, you die. So you have to get it, right? So the very fact that we still use this as an opportunity to generate profits is insane to me. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people have distaste and distrust for healthcare in this country. And that's why you got the likes of RFK Jr. and so many like anti-vaccine people in America that have this kind of attitude because they see the issue with for-profit healthcare. They recognize the issue with for-profit pharmaceuticals, and it breaks their brains. And instead of recognizing that the solution to this problem is by taking the profit motive out of this, a lot of people just end up making up their own minds about this and despising healthcare and despising medicine even. It's a much larger problem. But I think the important part of this, the important hinge point here to address is that profit is slammed into this sector, in every orifice of the sector that should not have anything to do with profit at all. And every single person has a story like the one I just told you. Every single person, because at a certain point you needed healthcare, okay? Unless you're like one of the most fortunate people on the planet, you still needed healthcare at a certain point. And when you got it, you were shocked at the bill. When you got it, you were shocked at the process where this healthcare that you paid for or that your parents paid for fucked you over. And they denied your claims. We live in a country where there is a concept of medical bankruptcy. Europeans cannot comprehend that. They're like, what do you mean medical bankruptcy? That is an insane process. And yet it is a very real process. I got electrocuted at work. Company denied my claim. Still injured. Couldn't work. I lose my insurance because I'm not working. So my job starts offering me insurance. Lol, I got my health insurance taken because I got injured. Cobra was like $660 a month and to be paid with no income amount. Exactly. This is unsustainable. And anyone that tries to tell you that this is like a perfectly valid, perfectly sustainable system is insane. Also, what else? You want to know what else is insane? This motherfucker was deficit hawking at the age of 12. Luigi Mangione likes obstacle to deficit cutting, a nation on entitlements. This is exactly the type of dude I need to reach out to pull them from the throes of weirdo politics, okay? This is why I do what I do. Do you understand? This man is posting Wall Street Journal articles about deficit cutting and the obstacles to deficit cutting and entitlements. But that's from 2010 when he was like, what, 12? I suspect that he's changed his mindset since then. He was 12 years old. What a goddamn nerd. Holy shit. All right. Let's continue. Let's continue with this broad sweeping coverage here.
For just over 5 days, our NYPD investigators combed through thousands of hours of video, followed up on hundreds of tips, and processed every bit of forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints, IP addresses, and so much more to tighten the net. We deployed drones, canine units, and scuba divers. We leveraged the domain awareness system, Argus cameras. I love this
like back patting that like all of these institutions always do after like some random McDonald's employees like, I recognize those eyebrows. He's being kind of sus. It literally is always like, we did so much. Yeah, it amounted to nothing. Like, you did so much with your domain awareness system, and the only thing, the thing that got him caught was the fact that he didn't follow BDS. He did not go to, he should not have gone to the McDonald's in, what is it, Toontown? Looney Tunes Town, whatever, Pennsylvania. Okay, someone was like, I recognize those eyebrows. This guy's being kind of sus. I don't know what's happening there. Yeah, they were searching in Atlanta. Italiophobia got him arrested. The guy saw his eyebrows and were like, those are too powerful. Yeah, apparently he had like a 2-page manifesto as well, which we'll cover in a second. Watch that manifesto end up being some Pulitzer Prize level critique of the American healthcare system. I doubt it. I don't think this guy is, I mean, he is definitely a big reader, but given his STEM background, I highly doubt it. And given his political associations, I highly doubt that he is a great writer. No, he is not a incel. This doesn't mean that he's an incel chatter. Luigi Mangione, hot damn, are you single? You make us engineers have hope, says Pen Crushes. May 1st, 2019. He says, despite all my best efforts, yup, still single. And I don't think that is I don't think that that's indicative that he was an incel. Luigi fixed 300 UI bugs for Civilization 6, by the way. He was a UI programming intern at Firaxis Games. Civ 6 team fixed over 300 UI bugs, 25% of UI bug count using LUA language, Jira software, and Perforce version control system. Work with a 10-person Scrum team in agile environment. This is from his LinkedIn. This man just keeps getting better and better. He should be freed, I think. A real hero for all the Sid Meier Civilization heads out there. Remember who the true heroes of society are, okay? What was the Malcolm X quote? Newspapers will have you thinking that your friends are your enemies. If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. You know, just something to remember. Why have we had not one but two weird centrist assassins this year? Because that's just America. The very fact that his politics are all over the place is the most American thing. Anyway, CNN reports that a 2-page document from Luigi Mangione was found, including the lines, which includes the lines, these parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done. 56,000 likes from Pop Base. Now, all I'm going to say is this manifesto, if it comes out in its entirety, it will rip through. Okay. Also, it seems like he's apologetic, which is very important, especially at a time when no one really sees the need to apologize anymore. I mean, that shows growth, that shows courage, that shows awareness. Release him.
A second page really kind of goes into problems with the health industry. He raises the question, you know, why do we have the most expensive healthcare in the world, but we're 42, rated 42 in life expectancy around the world? I can't vet his facts or findings there, but it was talking about the healthcare industry and the need for violence.
Centrist brain rot. This type of CEO is evil, but only this type, no others. Yeah, no, he like enjoys Sam Altman and Peter Thiel, who are objectively just as evil as like the average healthcare CEO is. Judging this profile of the shooter with the limited information that we have, it's obvious to me that like the pivotal moment in his life was his back surgery and all of the awful things that came after that. Seems like he fell off the map, fell off the face of the earth for like 6 months, festering in his anger and resentment, and then did this deed, took matters into his own hands. But the reality of the matter is, it does not matter what his ideological background is in this situation. It doesn't matter at all, because Americans of all different political allegiances understood instantly what was going on. They didn't need to know anything. They were like, oh, healthcare CEO killed? I know what that's about. And not only did they say, I know what that's about, before even learning a single thing. Nobody even thought maybe it's his wife that called out this hit or anything like that. Everyone immediately was like, no, it's got to be healthcare related. And not only is it healthcare related, that they thought this is good, actually. That is the level of resentment that people have. And you have to understand that this is a pivotal moment for a lot of people. The propaganda of the deed, if you will. Because you don't have to be like, it's worse if this is like a card-carrying communist or some shit. You know what I mean? Because then you can just be like, oh, this is a violent ideology. Socialism is a violent ideology. Look at this. Like, this is a moment where a person with indecipherable politics that's like kind of right-wing associated, loves the podcast bro circuit, went in and shot a healthcare CEO because of the frustration and the anger that he experienced. And almost every American that encountered the story understood what the was going on. So in the upcoming days, when they say like, oh, he went crazy, like this is a crazy guy, it's like, yeah, someone who rips through the social fabric in this way and engages in an act of direct violence in this way, of course, does not have like full-blown mental clarity, but it still doesn't change the dynamic at all. And it certainly doesn't change the reception of the act, because people with the mental clarity that weren't involved in this recognize the wrong and the harm that they have also experienced in their own personal lives. So I think that is, in my opinion, the most productive way of looking at this situation. The most productive way of analyzing the situation, in my opinion, is trying to look at the systemic harm that all Americans face and why they analyzed this person's actions in the way that they did, and why they were so receptive and so broadly supportive. Here is his rating on industrial society and its future. Now, if you know anything about Theodore John Kaczynski's formative work, you know that it is also indecipherable, with the exception of like a lot of fascist anti-communist sentiment jumping out of the paper. Just so you understand, it's not like Ted Kaczynski was a prolific writer. It's mostly the ramblings of a madman. A lot of people only hyper focus on the first couple of sentences and basically operate off of that and think that this guy had like brilliant thoughts. Ultimately, he was a rabid anti-communist, a CIA lab rat whose brain was fried, and I guess had some semblance of environmentalism. But here's how Luigi Mangione rated the book. He gave it 4 stars. Not exactly a great read overall. So the fact that he gave it a 4 stars, immediate red flag. Let's take a look. It says, clearly written by a mathematics prodigy. Okay, that could be a diss. Reads like a series of lemmas on the question of 21st century quality of life. It's easy to quickly and thoughtless write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out. He was a violent individual, rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people. While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary. A take I found online that I think is interesting. Had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere, and at the end of the day, he's probably right. Oil barons haven't listened to any environmentalists, but they feared him. When all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. One thing I will say about Luigi Mangione is that unlike Theodore John Kaczynski, he actually did target someone who was a vector of pain, rather than random post-grads that got their blown off by his whimsical traps that he created, okay? Like, Ted Kaczynski was like, oh, I have this broad worldview, and what will I do to achieve my goals? I am going to blow the fingers off of Radio Shack employees. Like, when all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. You may not like his methods, but to see things from his perspective, it's not terrorism, it's war and revolution. Fossil fuel companies actively suppress anything that stands in their way, and within a generation or two, it will begin costing human lives by greater and greater magnitudes until the Earth is just a flaming ball orbiting third from the sun. Peaceful protest is outright ignored. Economic protest is impossible in the current system, so how long until we recognize that violence against those who lead us to such destruction is justified as self-defense? These companies don't care about you or your kids or your grandkids. They have zero qualms about burning down the planet for a buck, so why should we have any qualms about burning them down to survive? We're animals just like everything else on this planet, except we've forgotten the law of the jungle and bent over for our overlords when any other animal would recognize the threat and fight to the death for their survival. Violence never solved anything is a statement uttered by cowards and predators. So this is not his quote. This is a quote that he found interesting about industrial society and its future. And he did say some of these things in his own manifesto as well, talking about these parasites had it coming. I do find it really funny, I will say, that he follows the Lindy tradition, whatever his name is. There's does anyone have that tweet? Yeah, I can't believe I'm typing this, but there's a non-zero chance that the CEO shooter did it because of a Paul Scalas tweet. Person of interest in fatal shooting. Brian Thompson ID'd is Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione's bookshelf. Want to read Life in the Lindy Effect by Paul Scalas. Here's the tweet. Look, if you don't have any kids and you're one of these guys just floating around the big cities, you got your education, but you never really used it to make money. You got a dead-end back office job, a future of just working somewhere until you're 75 and then dying. Go ahead and do something. And it seems that his high school yearbook quote was, Donkey, video game Donkey. That's kind of cool. Yeah, Another Day, Another Play by Donkey. Oh my God. Video game Donkey. At it again, folks. Big drama. It's Drama Monday. My enemy Donkey once again rears his head. Here are some choice tweets from this man. This is why Jordan Peterson always bothers me. Overcomplicates everything he says aloud, wasting everyone's mental bandwidth and having to decipher it. The best teachers are the best communicators. Clear, succinct, simple language. I should have added some context with this clip. I wasn't trying to contradict you, but rather bolster your point. Tucker is spot on in recognizing that modern architecture kills the spirit, but his very first line, postmodern architecture is designed to demoralize and hurt you, paints the phenomenon as intentional. In the same way that inflation is not intelligently designed to oppress people, neither is modern architecture. It's emergent. Yes, it is oppressive, but that's a fallout of selective pressures to build fast, cheap, irrespective of aesthetics. My point here is that even when people have brilliant insights, they often blatantly get the causation wrong. Modern equivalent of this drought famine was caused by the rain gods. God damn, he's a yapper. But yeah, his entire Goodreads list, and some of these he, I assume, read. Some of these he did not or wanted to read, right? Yeah. 7 Habits of the Highly Effective People, on immunity and inoculation. Should we eat meat? Evolution and its consequences. How to lie with statistics. Oh my God. That one is a classic. What if? Serious scientific answers to absurd hypotheticals. The greatest show on earth. The evidence for evolution. The magic and reality. How we know what's really true. Richard Dawkins. Like, he had a bunch of Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. It seemed like on his want to read list, he had a litany of different, like, there was a Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler want to read. Oh God, why the f would you put that on your Goodreads? That's crazy. What are your thoughts on this quote from J. Krishnamurti? It is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Yeah, I mean, it is one of my choice. Takes as well. Those who feel strong aversion to adjusting to a maladjusted society are normally deemed mentally ill, alcoholics, substance abusers, or slackers. They're corralled into 12-step groups or mental hospitals, or placed on medication, or even when shunned. All in an attempt to make them conform and fit in. When what really needs to change is society itself. Just as gun legislation will not end the senseless mass shootings, because what we really need to do is stop generating psychopaths as a culture. Yeah, his sister posted this on IG stories, praying for you. Which, respect. Same, sis. I can't stress this enough. This is a STEM guy whose introduction into his introduction to the humanities is, many of you in this community are very similar in profile to this person. A lot of you are comp sci and other, like, a variety of different STEM majors. But unlike him, many of you, instead of going the regular, like, Andrew Huberman, Lex Friedman, enlightened centrist, Jordan Peterson is a brilliant humanities professor route, or maybe you did actually go down that route at a certain point, came here because you realized, like, maybe these guys were not actually presenting reality in a way that is true. Maybe they were, not exactly well equipped. Many of you went on your own intellectual journey and then arrived here. Many of you went on your own intellectual journey, but it seems to me like he is more so like a possible r/atheism, Richard Dawkins appreciator, guy who thinks Sam Altman is brilliant. Sam Altman is OpenAI, for those of you who don't know. Guy who thinks Peter Thiel is brilliant. Like, he retweeted Peter Thiel. This is a person who went on his own intellectual journey, and just like many who succumb to the unlimited amount of extreme centrist, maybe center-right content out there, he found himself in the whims of these kinds of content creators. None of that actually played a role in his actions, though. None of that played even a little bit of a formative role in the actions that he took. It seems to me like, regardless of his political ideology or the way he presented himself online, this was a very direct, you can present a very direct through line from what happened in his past and the actions that he took. Like, here, he is responding to Tim Urban. My book, What's Our Problem, is now available. The book introduced a new framework for thinking about our chaotic political environment. This is from February 21st, 2023. He responded to this a year later. Do you think one day this could be taught in school curricula? What would that take? Now, I find this very interesting because Tim Urban is also consistently been chirping about how ridiculous and violent this action was. We live amongst a good number of people who are no different than those who ordered thousands of beheadings during the French Revolution. They just don't currently have the power to do what they want. Tim Urban here, quote retweeting Taylor Lorenz, and people wonder why we want these executives dead. That is the irony here. His actions, while he was directly like a Tim Urban head, many of the people that he actually took notes from, the anti-woke people, like all these like Lex Friedman types, they by design play a formative role in shifting your attention away from the real vectors of pain in contemporary American society. They play a very big role in trying to deflect that attention away unconditionally every step of the way to make you say, no, 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 it is not the rich. It is not those who are at the head of these corporations that design society in a way where I am experiencing so many pressures in the wealthiest nation on earth. Pressures like, you know, healthcare, an industry that should not be for profit. And yet it is. It is actually your fellow man that is causing your suffering. You should be angry not at those who are in positions of power, but you should be not at, and you should not be angry at the systems that bind us, but instead you should be angry at those who are annoying, or those who advocate for their own, for their own existence, those who want civil liberties, those who want equality. You should be angry at those people who have no power. Get mad at undocumented immigrants, get mad at trans people, get mad at those who advocate for trans people and undocumented immigrants, not the CEOs, not the corporate oligopoly that exists. And yet it is obvious that in spite of all of that chaos and the deliberate attempts to shift your priorities away, to shift your attention away from those who actually cause harm, especially when it comes to an issue that touches every single American in a meaningful way, people go, nah, I know what happened here. And that's precisely what's going on with the story of Luigi Mangione, a person who, regardless of his like podcast consumption and books that he's read, a person who has consistently, routinely quote retweeted Tim Urban, a person who Tim Urban very clearly hates the actions that Luigi Mangione took. No matter what, he still went through an experience that was formative, that was radicalizing, that caused him to get mad at a CEO in the for-profit healthcare system. Reminds me of Ryan Ruth, the Trump golf course guy who clearly had contradictory views in politics. A man who wants to be freed from something that is so frustrating, but has no clue what that thing really is, capitalism. They end up with weird, muddied anti-politics. There's millions like that, and they don't really know what they are or what they believe in, but come very close. Exactly. Intelligent with another banger. Yeah, this was the best take I've seen on this ideology as well. I do not care if Luigi Mangione, assuming this is really the guy, shares my personal ideological outlook. His alleged actions were propelled by the material conditions of capitalism and can be used to advance class consciousness or struggle.